Welcome to Cybercast, decoding today's cyber issues. I'm Alexander Bolova, production lead at GovCIO Media and Research. With me today is Editor-in-Chief, Amy Kluber. Hi, Amy.
Hey.
You had the opportunity to chat with Cherilyn Pascoe, Director of the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at NIST. How'd it go?
Very good. Sherry became permanent director of the Center of Excellence just recently. So we caught up with her to talk about some of her new priorities and what the center is up to.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about the Center of Excellence at NIST.
Well, it's involved in several different projects tackling things like supply chain security, bias and AI, post-quantum cryptography. But the main thing we talked about with Sherry was NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. They did just release that in February, which was pretty newsworthy. So she talks more about the framework and how the center collaborates across the industry and why that's important. And she also highlights like what different businesses and organizations should know about that framework and how to apply it into their own ecosystems.
Not to step on the toes of your conversation, but is there anything from the framework that you want to highlight up front?
I think the main thing to highlight is that it encompasses a lot of the new developments that have happened over the past 10 years with things like AI and automation. So it's a very critical framework for the new things that have come out. So it's really interesting to hear how that is applying to some of like the new evolving technology priorities that we're hearing about all the time.
Definitely. Well, let's not keep our listeners waiting. Let's take a listen to your conversation. Concerned about your agency's cybersecurity defenses against cyber threats? Trust in Zero Trust with Zscaler. Our security model assumes all users, devices, and applications are untrusted and only permits access on a need-to-know basis. As agencies modernize, the secure adoption of FedRAMP authorized cloud services is critical. With over 35 global certifications, Zscaler is the world's most accredited security cloud. Trust in Zero Trust with Zscaler. To learn more, visit zscaler.com/federal.
So, Sherry, nice to have you on the show. It's great to have you. I'm really looking forward to digging into some of the cybersecurity work that you're involved in.
Thanks, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me more about the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence and what do you do there? What are some of your priorities?
Yeah, so the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence is a applied cybersecurity research laboratory within NIST. We also operate the nation's cybersecurity FFRDC. I serve as its director, overseeing both the strategic as well as the technical management of the center. And as you know, NIST cares a lot about cybersecurity standards, and we've been in the cybersecurity space for the past 50 years. There's a lot of cybersecurity standards out there. There's also a lot of great kind of commercial available technology that organizations can leverage to help address their cybersecurity risks and their cybersecurity challenges. So our goal at the center is to help work with the community to identify and resolve cybersecurity challenges. And we do that by demonstrating how organizations can leverage commercially available technology, kind of off-the-shelf hardware and software to implement cybersecurity standards to address these challenges. So we provide a lot of implementation guidance, for how organizations can best leverage standards, best, put them to use within their kind of unique mission space. We often put standards and technologies to the test. So we're also identifying improvements, kind of changes to standards and technologies based off of the research that we've done at the center. And all of this work that we do is all under collaboration with industry, kind of other government agencies, academia. We've signed now more than 400 CRADAs.
Wow.
These are legal R&D agreements with, different technology vendors, organizations around the world. We've signed now 25 interagency agreements with other federal agencies. So all of this is really the way that we operate is under consortia for each of our projects. So we'll take 10, 20, 30 different organizations get together to kind of address the specific cybersecurity challenge that we've identified. And so it's really cool to be able to see, different industry, especially technology vendors who might often be competitors, working together to see how their products, fit together, how they connect together, matching that up with the challenges of the end user, which can also be industry, it can be a federal agency, to really make sure that we're all kind of working together to address the challenge that we've identified.
Absolutely. That's really critical, especially in today's world where, the silos, we hear so much that silos are not great, but to be able to tackle some of the huge cybersecurity concerns that have come out over the past year alone, I feel like that kind of collaborative effort is crucial, where something like this is a necessary part of the conversation. So what have been some of the biggest developments in cybersecurity that the Center of Excellence is tackling now, or maybe has really ramped up on lately?
Yeah, so right now we're running about 30, 35 different projects. So we've got a number of different things that we're working on, and all of our work kind of spans different areas, whether it be kind of really fundamental cybersecurity practices like, applied cryptography or zero trust or identity challenges. But we also do some sector specific work. So tailoring guidance to, the healthcare sector, the energy sector. We have a project that we just kicked off on water cybersecurity, which I think is helpful to kind of bring, these standards even closer to the end user to kind of tailor them specifically to their missions. I'll pinpoint two areas, that we've done kind of ramping up. One is on encryption and kind of applied cryptography. So, it's hard to not talk about encryption when you're talking about NIST, just because we have such deep technical expertise on encryption. Right now, NIST is working on the new standards for post-quantum crypto. And so the NCCOE has been working with more than 30 different organizations, technology vendors, end users, banks. We're working with other federal agencies, including CISA and NSA, to help develop guidance for organizations to migrate to these new standards once they're developed. So, this will include everything from kind of identifying vulnerable cryptography in your organization, doing a risk assessment to be able to migrate to the new standards and then kind of switch out your hardware, software. We're also working on kind of interoperability testing with existing, networking standards and existing technologies, really making sure that the vendors as well are also ready to be able to sell their new technologies once the standards kind of hit and become official. So there's a lot of different audiences that we're working with to help support, this really huge transition to the new kind of PQC standards. Another area, that I'll highlight is on NIST cybersecurity frameworks, and NIST has done a lot of work in developing these kind of high-level frameworks. For example, the NIST cybersecurity framework, which we just updated, the privacy framework, the secure software development framework. These are really high-level documents that can help to organize an organization's kind of entire cybersecurity strategy. And at NCCOE, we map back all of our work back to the cybersecurity framework. So, for example, in our work on zero trust, we've mapped, the security capabilities or security principles of zero trust back to the higher level categories and subcategories of the framework. We've mapped the individual security capabilities of products that folks can acquire or they're already using back to the framework. And I think this is kind of really helpful to see, how these individual strategies that organizations, especially federal agencies, are having to put in place kind of relate back to their higher level kind of holistic cybersecurity risk management strategy. So how does all the pieces kind of fit together, all the way down to kind of the individual capabilities of products that they're using within the organization. So all of our work at NCCU is really built around helping organizations to kind of implement, these different frameworks, these different standards, really to make it easier for them, rather than adding, additional burden of here's another thing, that you need to do. We really want to try to find ways to kind of lessen the burden for them to implement these standards.
So I do want to dig into the Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. I know it's the first update since it was released about 10 years ago. So what is in the new framework, and how does it incorporate some of the more recent cyber developments that are constantly evolving?
Yeah, so the Cybersecurity Framework has really been an amazing journey over the past 10 years. It's kind of a rarity that it has endured over the past decade, just given how much, the cybersecurity landscape has evolved. Cybersecurity standards have changed, the risks have changed, the technology landscape has changed, the regulatory landscape has changed. And with this new update to CSF 2.0, we really wanted to make sure that the new version would also serve, for the next decade. And so we're wanting to make sure that we are addressing kind of current cybersecurity risks, as well as those perhaps not yet known cybersecurity risks of the future. And so there's a couple of big changes, that we work towards with the new version of the framework. One is we expanded the scope of the framework. So the framework was originally developed for critical infrastructure. Now it's unclear that it's being used beyond that, including by federal agencies. And so we wanted to make sure that we went through the language and just made sure that it was language that was approachable to all organizations, kind of regardless of sector, regardless of their maturity level. So that's one big change that we made. Another one was kind of increasing the emphasis on governance with the new kind of govern function. The CSF was always intended to be used, as a kind of higher level management type document, everything to be able to increase communication between, senior leadership, as well as cybersecurity professionals within an organization, as well as outside of an organization. But, the new version, I think, really helps to emphasize, that really the importance of cybersecurity governance, the fact that organizations and that their senior leadership should be involved in cybersecurity, kind of setting the principles for what an organization should do. And this new function will ensure that it's not just a priority, but that it's something that an organization has to track, as well as measure, how they're doing and whether they're improving in this particular issue. We also wanted to increase the number of guidance for organizations in using the framework, and so we've developed, a number of different tools, whether that be quick start guides or new mapping tools like the Cybersecurity and Privacy Reference Tool. This is also an area where NCCUE will kind of take over to develop additional guidance for organizations to really help them kind of use the framework. The framework is really a very high level document. It has to mean, so many different things to so many different people. And so this next step, I think, is going to be really critical to help organizations realize kind of how they're able to tailor it, how they're able to best leverage the framework now that everyone is going to be transitioning to this new version.
Absolutely. I want to ask about the National Cyber Strategy that just came out actually about a year ago now. How much has the Center of Excellence kind of shifted, I guess, its work or reprioritized its work since that National Cyber Strategy was released, considering it had such an impact on the software community, the software vendor community. Have you heard that at all on the Center of Excellence, or have you taken on any of those shifts as a result of that?
Yeah, so one example obviously is the update of the cybersecurity framework was included in the strategy. So that's obviously one success that we can mark off as something that we've accomplished. Another area, though, that I think was really critical in the strategy was it talked about how NIST will serve as a technical advisor to regulators to help increase harmonization of regulations around NIST frameworks, especially the NIST cybersecurity framework. That was kind of a unique thing that we saw as we were updating the framework was a kind of call from industry on the need to harmonize regulations with existing frameworks and standards. And so going forward, NIST will serve as an advisor when requested to help identify where there might be standards and kind of help increase the harmonization with the framework. And we've seen increasing use of kind of regulations and grants and incentives coming out of both federal and at the state level where they're actually directly requiring the use of the framework in specific sectors. The strategy also talks a lot about kind of software development and increasing the security of products. We at the center have a new project that we're standing up on kind of supply chain security and helping organizations to implement the NIST secure software development framework. The SSDF is now required in use for federal agencies, but there's, I think, more guidance that can be developed to really help organizations understand exactly how to use the framework, maybe how to tailor it to specific types of software, such as open source software, going into kind of artificial intelligence as well. So we're really excited about this new project that we're going to be kicking off that's been directed under the new strategy that's really focused on, secure software development as well.
That's very exciting. You mentioned the different sectors that the Center of Excellence serves, or how you have to think about the communications you put out to, be relevant to everybody. What are some of the nuances that the different sectors have to consider around some of the cyber approaches that someone might not think about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, every time actually, regardless of sector, every time we start a new project, we always look at kind of what are the specific risks, that sector or that use case is facing. Because everything that we do at NIST is based off of, risk and kind of risk management. And all of that is defined, based off of what the organization's specific mission is, what their kind of unique risks are, their unique threats, as well as their unique risk tolerances and appetites. Some of that is, driven by the kind of regulatory environment in each sector. So, we often will look at what a sector is kind of what their compliance measures are and what they're required to do, because that seems to be, an area where, especially in industry, folks, want to spend a lot of time is, am I compliant with so-and-so law that I'm subject to? But we always try to move kind of beyond that as well, to look kind of more broadly at, what a certain sector really needs to do to address their kind of their risks as a whole. And that can include, a piece, some of the compliance measures may help to address, but there's usually more, that they need to do. And with all of this, we're not experts on any one particular sector. So we always try to work with, the relevant agency that oversees the sector or agencies that oversee the sector. We work with, various industry members or that are part of the sector, and we'll form, communities of interest or working groups or consortia, depending on what is needed to really help, pull in a lot of different voices from from the sector to really help define, and talk and sit through and try to understand what their specific challenges are, and if there's anything unique about that sector that might require, a slightly different approach. So we never try to define that for them, but really try to kind of listen and hear what their specific challenges are and how we can best, address them.
Absolutely. Moving forward, I know government is facing a whole host of different directives, major directives, such as the National Cyber Strategy, as we talked about, executive orders for things like zero trust. What role do you see policy playing around, the future of cybersecurity issues? And do you think there's anything more that needs to be done?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time with federal agencies in the work that we do at the center. I mean, obviously, federal agencies are unique in the fact that they have to meet NIST cybersecurity standards and guidance as directed by OMB. So we will sit down with them and kind of walk through, especially, for example, on zero trust. Agencies now have to move towards zero trust, and we've got a great project where we are working with 24 vendors to prove, that zero trust works and run through different scenarios of how to developing these kind of examples, ETAs, within our laboratory. So there's a lot of lessons learned, that we've identified in the research that we've done, and we try to share that back out with, federal agencies that are now having to do this within their own kind of unique mission spaces. So we're happy to continue working with, government agencies to help them, address their kind of specific cybersecurity challenges. With respect to policy, I think, the one thing that I'll say is what I referred to earlier is, NIST is a really big believer in risk management. And it's important to not view cybersecurity as solely, a compliance issue, but one that's focused on risk. And so that's why, we are kind of serving as advisors to federal regulators to focus more on, things like the NIST Cybersecurity Framework that can kind of provide that more holistic view of the cybersecurity risks of an organization, and have that be something that is, leveraged as, an incentive or even a mandate for organizations to be able to up their game, in cybersecurity. And we're hoping that, the work that we do, together at the NCCOE and the collaboration that we have with, with industry and with other government agencies, that we're able to make, really big changes together in helping to kind of bring down the cybersecurity risk.
Fantastic. Well, looking forward over the next several months, I know you just mentioned a couple new projects that you kicked off. Is there anything you're really excited about?
Yeah, so one of the things that I haven't covered is we have a great partnership with the state of Maryland and Montgomery County focused on economic development. We're running a series of events called the Maryland Cybersecurity Connections this year. These are in-person events that are tailored towards local businesses in the state, especially small businesses. So we're putting on these events focused on different topics to help, talk about obviously the work that we're doing at the center, but also try to get a better understanding of the unique challenges of some of the local businesses within the state of Maryland. So I'm really looking forward to that partnership that, with the state. I think it's going to be pretty cool to see, how we can best apply some of the research that we're doing towards, economic development within the state. So looking forward to those events.
Fantastic. Well, Sherry, thank you so much for catching up with me. It was a great look at some of the work that you're doing and how this pertains to some broader cyber issues across government. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy. That was a great conversation with Sherry. Listeners can tune in next week for a brand new episode in our GovCIO Media and Research podcast feed. But until then, if you like what you heard, make sure that you leave a review and a 5-star rating on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're not already, you should subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of our interviews with federal IT's top decision makers. And hey, tell a friend. We always appreciate growing our audience. I'm Alexander Bolova.
I'm Amy Kluber.
Thank you for listening. Cybercast, along with GovCast and HealthCast, is a production of GovCIO Media and Research. To explore our content, visit our website, govciomedia.com. Keep an eye out for new episodes every Tuesday. And if you like what you heard, leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. Have a topic you want us to discuss? Contact us at newsletter@govcio.com.